if you're on the right side of the media, I think anymore, we can go by what you just said. If you say it, it becomes true. If you're on the wrong side of the media, if you say it, then it becomes, oh, that's
Mhm.
bullshit. You know what I mean? Am I making sense
Yeah,
with
no,
that?
that's what's been driving me nuts is if you are in a certain position, you can say whatever you want and people accept it as fact and they abide by it and believe it and it's Bible and they argue when their families with it. But if you present them with actually data backed information or scientific studies, it doesn't matter where it comes from. They say that's misinformation, that's disinformation. It's like anything they don't like, they just label misinformation, and that's concerning. And yes, it's become something where if you just say it enough, it becomes true. And it was that way for the pandemic of the unvaccinated, right? For safe and effective. They just repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. So people repeated it and it was just true. And there was never any, hey, since this time, these are the numbers based in these places. There's none of that. It was just simple talking points that were repeated and people heard over and over and became programmed to believe. And it was Bible. It was done. And if you questioned it, you were censored or blocked or shamed or ridiculed or labeled, any number of derogatory things. And that's been the most infuriating part of the last year plus, because you watch these mainstream, like legacy media outlets, and they say these things and there's no backing it up and there's no expectation to back it up. It's just taken for granted. Like, yeah, of course they're saying it and it's true. And I feel that way. Like I've been, I don't know, the way I view things now that I see and hear on television is so completely different than it was 3 years ago. I mean, my trust has been completely eroded in our regulatory agencies and our media outlets, and to the point, like even with this Russia-Ukraine thing, I'm like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's photoshopped. I don't know what's taken out of context. I don't know what's being presented to present one side of the story. And you just, it's carrying over. So I think there's going to be long-term ramifications of the last 2 years that we've just lived in when it comes to the trust people have in their politicians and their regulatory agencies and in the mainstream media.
I believe that the whole mask thing last night was in response to Democrats getting the shit kicked out of them, or at least seemingly.
Yeah.
We could all go to sleep like we did the last time, and all of a sudden the election changed. I get that, but and Allison, I said earlier on the show, if that is in fact, all of a sudden we're not wearing masks, and all of a sudden, we're keeping kids or in schools, we're not having mask mandates anymore. I think it's pure evil. I think if you are doing this for political reasons, it's pure evil. Now, I don't,
Well,
I'm with you. I don't, but I'll tell you this, I didn't see Fauci last night. I haven't seen Fauci in
yeah.
a long
I
time.
mean, here is the thing. If they presented us with information that was consistent and said, this is what we're basing it on, but it changes, right? And then they just can slightly manipulate a few things. And then it looks like the numbers look this way. They can say, okay, well, who's hospitalized with COVID instead of, because of COVID, which people have been asking for the differentiation, for 2 years, but they were deniers and all that.
Yes.
So yes, but I think you're right, because there isn't anything else you can point to and say, this is why they're changing it at this time, other than you had the State of the Union coming up. He wanted to announce, that they have defeated COVID and that they have been victorious and their efforts are working. And then you've got an election cycle coming up. They're seeing the numbers. They're seeing people are fed up. I don't know what else this is a reaction to, if not that. Here's what's interesting to me, though, Dan, is like, how are you going to unweave this from people's minds? Because there are certain persons in this party, the more vocal ones especially, who still want to wear masks and who still think they're necessary. And I see them all the time here outdoors, like Biden walking around with a mask on. So this has become so intertwined with being a Democrat now, that how do you break that from certain people in your party and say like, no, it's okay now because they have been programmed. And this is like, it's virtue signaling. And I remember a while back, I saw somebody comment on Facebook and it was like, I wear a mask because I don't want to be mistaken for a Republican. And there is such an association now between wearing your mask in public and the way you lean and the way you think. Like even my own nephew said, yeah, it'll be interesting to see at school who still wears a mask after the 12th, and you'll kind of know which way they lean and which way they vote or think or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It's become such a virtue signal, and it represents so much more than what it did initially and kind of where you stand and how you're aligned. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of navigate this as they try to tell people like, no, we're good with you not wearing a mask now.